They saw a quiet woman with a broom, a ghost who swept away their spent casings. But when the ambush hit and their commander fell, she didn't scream. She demanded his rifle. What she did next is now a classified legend. Ava Thorne was a phantom in a world of titans. At 30, with strands of golden brown hair escaping a severe ponytail and eyes the color of a stormy sea, she moved through the Naval Special Warfare Center at Cape Henry with an economy of motion that rendered her almost invisible. For 2 years, her official title was Range Logistics Technician. To the men of SEAL Team 7, she was just a woman who cleaned up their mess. Every morning at 0500, she'd be there, her presence as reliable and unnoticed as the salty Virginia air. She replaced shot-out targets, recalibrated sensitive equipment, and swept up the mountains of gleaming brass casings left behind by America's most elite warriors. To them, she was part of the landscape, a functional object in their high-stakes theater of preparation. They were the predators, honing their lethal craft, and she was the quiet custodian of their domain. They never saw the way her gray-blue eyes would linger on a shooter's stance, a flicker of analysis in their depths. They never noticed the minute adjustments she'd make to the target systems, preempting issues only a master marksman would anticipate. What none of them knew, what the system had deliberately buried, was that Ava Thorne was the daughter of a legend. Her father, callsign Pathfinder, had been a Delta Force sniper in the 90s, a ghost of Mogadishu whose name was spoken in hushed, reverent tones at Quantico and Fort Bragg. Ava's childhood wasn't filled with playgrounds. It was spent in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where her father taught her the gospel of the rifle. Breath control before trigger pull, the subtle language of the wind, the cold, beautiful mathematics of ballistics. The rifle is an honest tool. Echo, he'd tell her, using his pet name for her. It only does what you command. The real weapon is here. He'd tap his temple. Patience, observation, and the will to see what others miss. After retiring, he had poured every ounce of his suppressed knowledge into her. He trained her in the shadows, knowing the institution he'd served would never see a woman as anything more than a supporting role. She had tried. After earning a degree in mechanical engineering with a focus on ballistics, she'd shattered every record at the recruitment office. Her marksmanship scores were so high they were initially flagged as administrative errors, but the doors remained closed. Recruiters, seeing her gender before her scores, steered her toward intelligence analysis or logistics. The bias wasn't spoken. It was structural, a wall of polite deferrals and more suitable career paths. The frustration had eventually cooled into a quiet resolve. So she took the job at Cape Henry, a calculated move to remain within the orbit of the world she was born for, even if she could only watch from the periphery. One afternoon, watching a young SEAL struggle with a long-range shot, she saw him misread the wind shear coming off the dunes. She instinctively murmured the correct holdover under her breath, a ghost's whisper lost in the thunder of gunfire. She was invisible, but she was always watching. The attack wasn't an attack, it was a dissection. At 9:16, what was supposed to be a complex urban warfare drill devolved into genuine chaos. The first sign wasn't a loud explosion, but a chillingly silent one. A small, sophisticated drone, almost invisible against the overcast sky, dropped a micro-explosive that severed the base's primary communication antenna with surgical precision. Seconds later, the real storm broke. An RPG rocket screamed across the training ground and slammed into an armored vehicle, flipping it onto its side like a child's toy. The concussive force knocked Ava, who was replacing targets at the 600-meter line, flat on her face. Simultaneously, coordinated sniper fire erupted from the wooded hills overlooking the facility. These weren't pot shots. The rounds were precise, targeting team leaders and communication specialists with chilling accuracy. Commander Jake Apex Sullivan, the formidable leader of SEAL Team 7, felt his world shrink to the size of the concrete barrier he'd dived behind. His men, caught in the open, were pinned down, their training scenarios replaced by a brutal fight for survival. The attackers had planned this meticulously, exploiting defensive blind spots and striking during a shift change. Contact, contact! Hostiles on the ridge, north and east. Sullivan's radio crackled with frantic reports before going eerily silent. The comms were being jammed. They were isolated. The enemy fire was a symphony of destruction, a crossfire designed to systematically dismantle them. Ava, her ears ringing, pushed herself up. Her training, drilled into her since childhood, took over. She wasn't panicking. She was assessing. Muzzle flashes from 3 distinct positions. A heavy machine gun suppressing the main gate. The sniper fire was too accurate, too patient. This was professional. Sullivan's team was bleeding. Petty Officer Martinez, their designated marksman and best shot, grunted as a 7.62 millimeters round tore through his shoulder, incapacitating him instantly. His state-of-the-art MK-13 rifle clattered to the ground beside him. Another SEAL was hit in the leg, his cries of pain barely audible over the relentless gunfire. They were trapped in a kill box. Steeljaw, this is Apex. Do you read? Sullivan yelled into his handset, knowing it was useless. The quick reaction force was stationed 5 miles away. Even if they knew, it would be an eternity. 15 minutes, maybe 20. They didn't have 5. That's when Sullivan, scanning the chaos for any advantage, saw something that defied all logic. It was the cleaning girl, Ava Thorne, and she wasn't running. While his elite, battle-hardened operators were pinned down, fighting for every inch of cover, Ava Thorne was moving. She wasn't scrambling for safety or cowering in fear. She was moving with a terrifying purpose, low-crawling through the maelstrom of bullets and debris with a tactical grace that Sullivan had only ever seen in seasoned combat veterans. Her path wasn't random. She was heading for the equipment shed near the sniper range. What the hell is she doing? One of his men yelled, his voice tight with disbelief. She's gonna get herself killed. Ava ignored the chaos. The cacophony of war faded into a focused hum in her mind. She reached the shed, slid the door open just enough to slip inside, and emerged a moment later. In her hands was a spare spotting scope and a set of advanced meteorological sensors. She wasn't seeking shelter. She was gathering tools. Her eyes scanned the battlefield. Her mind a cold calculator processing firing angles, wind vectors, and enemy positions. She saw Martinez, the wounded sniper, bleeding out behind a concrete barrier. She saw Sullivan, desperately trying to rally his men against an invisible, overwhelming force. And she saw the solution. It was perched 100 feet above them, a steel observation tower that offered a commanding view of the entire engagement area. Patterson made a decision born of pure desperation. He laid down a burst of suppressive fire and sprinted in a crouch to the barrier where Martinez lay. As he began applying a tourniquet, he saw Ava approaching, her movements fluid and certain. She didn't look at him with fear. Her gray-blue eyes were chips of ice, reflecting a focus that was unervingly calm. She stopped before him, the sounds of battle seeming to warp around her bubble of silence. Then she spoke, her voice steady and clear, cutting through the noise. "Commander, give me his rifle." Sullivan stared at her. For a full second, his brain refused to process the words. The cleaning girl, the quiet woman who swept their floors, was demanding the team's most advanced sniper system in the middle of a firefight. It was the most insane thing he had ever heard. "You can't be serious," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. "You're a civilian." Ava's gaze didn't waver. She gestured with her chin towards the hills. "Your marksman is down. Your team is trapped. The enemy owns the high ground. In approximately 10 minutes, you will be overrun. I can stop that from the tower. But I need his rifle, his scope, and his radio frequency. Now." The sheer, unadorned authority in her voice stunned him. It wasn't a plea. It was a tactical assessment delivered with the finality of a death sentence. He looked at his bleeding men, at the inescapable crossfire, and then back at the woman who had been invisible to him for 2 years. He was out of options. He was out of time. He made the most reckless decision of his career. "Give it to her." He barked at another SEAL. "Give her the goddamn rifle." As Ava took the MK-13 Mod 7 rifle, Her hands closed around the cold steel with a familiarity that was utterly incongruous with her simple maintenance coveralls. The weapon, a masterpiece of engineering worth over $10,000, seemed to settle into her grasp as if it were a long-lost limb. Before she moved, Sullivan grabbed her arm, his eyes boring into hers. "Thorne, if this is a bluff, if you're just scared and not thinking straight, you tell me right now." Ava met his gaze, and for the first time, he saw the abyss of experience behind her eyes. "Commander," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "trust me, this is what I do." Then she was gone, sprinting toward the observation tower. An enemy machine gunner spotted her movement and opened up, stitching a line of bullets across the ground behind her. But Ava was like smoke, weaving between cover, her path unpredictable. She reached the base of the tower and began to climb, the steel rungs slick with rain. Bullets sparked against the metal frame around her, but her pace never faltered. Once on the platform, she became a different person. The transformation was absolute. Through his binoculars, Sullivan watched, mesmerized. She didn't just lie down. She built her sniper's nest with the methodical precision of a watchmaker. She placed the rifle on its bipod, checked the scope's alignment, and plugged the meteorological sensors into a small wrist-mounted device. Her movements were fluid, economical, and utterly professional. Overwatch is online. Her voice, now crisp and devoid of any emotion, came through his earpiece. "Give me a target." Stunned, Sullivan replied, "Target is the sniper, East Ridge, hidden in the tree line. Approximate range, 850 meters. He's got Martinez pinned." Visual confirmed. Ava replied instantly, calculating for windage and spin drift. "Stand by." 30 seconds of tense silence followed. Then a single, sharp crack echoed from the tower, distinct from the chaotic symphony of the battle. Through his binoculars, Sullivan saw the enemy sniper's position. A small pink mist erupted where his head had been. The threat was gone. "Holy!" One of his men breathed over the comms. Before anyone could finish, Ava's voice cut in, cold as steel. "Next target. Machine gun. Main gate. Suppressing reinforcements." Sullivan ordered, his heart pounding. "Range, 950 meters. Target is behind a fortified position." "I see him," she replied. "This will be a deflection shot." Another crack. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the heavy machine gun fell silent. The SEALs near the gate later reported that the round had ricocheted off a concrete barrier at a perfect angle, striking the gunner in the chest. It was a shot that shouldn't have been possible. One by one, Ava dismantled the enemy attack. An RPG team vanished. A second sniper was eliminated mid-shot. Her sixth shot was the most unbelievable. She targeted the enemy spotter, directing the attack, but he was moving between two buildings. She fired once. The bullet traveled through the thin wall of the first structure and hit the spotter as he passed the gap, a shot that required predictive genius and a godlike understanding of ballistics. In under 5 minutes, 6 shots have been fired. 6 key enemy assets have been neutralized. The relentless, coordinated assault collapsed into a panicked, disorganized retreat. The ghost on the tower had broken their spine. When the remnants of the enemy force had fled and the first sounds of approaching friendly vehicles could be heard, a strange silence fell over the range. It was a silence filled with the weight of disbelief. Ava descended the tower, her movements just as deliberate as when she had climbed it. She walked across the scar battlefield and stopped in front of Sullivan, holding out the MK-13 rifle, but first, her face was a mask of calm professionalism, but her eyes held a 2-year storm of frustration. The men of SEAL Team 7, who had barely registered her existence that morning, now stared at her with a mixture of awe, confusion, and profound respect. They parted for her as she approached their commander, creating a circle of silent witnesses. Sullivan didn't take the rifle immediately. He just looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice quiet but intense. "Ava Thorne, range logistics technician," she replied, her tone flat. "No," Sullivan said, shaking his head. "That's your job, not who you are. What you just did, that's not something you learn in a logistics course." I've seen the best snipers in the world. None of them could have made those shots. Not like that. So I'm asking you again. Who are you? Ava's gaze drifted for a moment to the hills where her father had taught her to shoot, then met Sullivan's again. A flicker of old pain crossed her face before being replaced by cold resolve. My father was Master Sergeant Michael Thorne, she said, her voice clear and steady. Call sign Pathfinder. First SFODD. He taught me. The name hit Sullivan like a physical blow. Pathfinder. A ghost of the 90s, a sniper whose exploits were the stuff of legend, required reading at sniper schools. He was looking at the heir to that legacy, a woman who had been sweeping up their brass casings. The absurdity of it was staggering. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant whine of sirens. Why? Sullivan finally asked, his voice filled with a frustration that mirrored her own. In God's name, Thorne, why didn't you ever say anything? The mask on Ava's face finally cracked. A bitter, ironic smile touched her lips. Sir, she said, her voice laced with the weight of years of dismissal. When, exactly what I have told you. In the 2 years I've worked here, not one of you has ever asked me my name. To you, I was just the cleaning girl. You saw what you expected to see. She pushed a rifle firmly into his hands. No one was interested in what else I could do. The after-action report on the Cape Henry ambush became one of the most classified and studied documents in SOCM. It detailed the complete failure of conventional defenses and the astonishing performance of a single, unqualified civilian. Ava Thorne's name was redacted, replaced with the code name Echo, but her actions sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the military establishment. They weren't just impressed. They were terrified by the realization that their talent identification system was so broken it could allow a weapon of her caliber to be overlooked. Commander Jake Sullivan became her most fervent champion. His official recommendation for Ava's immediate officer commission bypassed years of red tape, propelled by the undeniable proof of her capabilities. He ended his report with a line that was quoted in the Pentagon for months. Thorne didn't just save my team. She exposed the most dangerous enemy we face, our own assumptions. 6 months later, Lieutenant Ava Echo Thorne was not just in the Navy. She was redesigning its entire advanced marksmanship program. She taught a new generation of snipers, male and female, that the deadliest weapon isn't the rifle, but the mind that refuses to be limited by expectations. Her relationship with Sullivan evolved into one of deep, mutual respect between two apex predators. He had learned to see the warrior, not the uniform, and she had finally found a place where her skills were valued, not just her gender. Have you ever felt invisible, your true potential completely overlooked by those around you? Ava's story is a powerful reminder that true greatness often hides in plain sight, waiting for a crisis to reveal itself. The men who saw her as furniture learned a hard lesson. Capability doesn't wear a name tag. If you believe that the most extraordinary people are often the ones we fail to see, share this story. Let us know your thoughts. And, as always, comment respect for the silent professionals among us. Because sometimes, the person cleaning the stage is the only one truly ready for the performance. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more incredible stories.